And on that note, we are going to kick things off, and we have our first speaker tonight doing your market reports. So one of Edmonton's most trusted real estate agents with a loyal following of clients, he's helped successfully invest in the market. His market updates are a crowd favorite around here, not just because he knows the numbers, but because he digs even deeper. Devin combines data with in-depth research and a real-world insight to spot trends before they show up in the stats. Ladies and gentlemen, give a warm round of applause to Devin Gray.
And here's an interesting situation. I heard several months ago that in these same communities, that because you've got some well-to-do homeowners in these areas, and if they saw a lot large enough that could potentially see an influx, that they were banding together and they were buying these lots. This is another move that Glenora and Crestwood residents are doing, is that they're basically working towards finding a way to put restrictive covenants on their land titles. So that would also slow the possibility of having influxes come into their neighborhood. So it's going to be an interesting summer when it comes to this. There's another big thing that's happening at City Council tomorrow, June 26th, and that's a vote to extend the downtown community revitalization levy. Again, that's Edmonton and the GEA's Greater Edmonton area. I brought this up last month because the first part of May was a big moment for Alberta population. We are now over 5 million people in Alberta. We lead the country. There was 20,000 people, 20,500 people that came to Alberta. By far the largest increase of any province. And interestingly enough, our gain was bigger than all of Canada by about 400 people. And then you can see that we benefited from those that lost population: Ontario, Quebec, BC, Newfoundland, Labrador, and Quebec. There we go. People are moving to Alberta. We saw nearly 140,000 people move to Alberta year over year, April to April. We lead the growth rate at 2.9%, while the national average is 1.2%. Alberta accounts for 25% of growth in Canada, while our population is only 12% of Canada's population. Growth is due to in-migration, and also we're having babies out here in the West, in particular in Alberta. We're having more births than deaths, which certainly also suggests that we have a younger population than other areas, and that also helped with our population growth.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I wouldn't want to sugarcoat it and say it was all easy, but what I will say is, like, once you make that decision and decide that, yes, you're in and you want to take these steps forward, I mean, there's such a great network of people out there and so many resources out there that if you actually put your mind to it, it is fairly easy. Like, you don't, and the other thing is you don't have to know all that before you start, right? Like, I know, yeah, I mean, sure, you're uncertain, you're scared, you know, you've never done this before. What are all the problems that can happen? But once you just say, hey, I can do this, I can jump in. I don't need to be an expert right off the start. I'm going to learn with experience, and I have confidence that we can learn and adapt and take care of any challenges that arise. So I think once we kind of got through that step, there is, like I said, there's lots of resources, great networks that you just kind of go and learn as you're going. I worry that, you know, in 15, 20 years, my kids won't be able to afford property and they'll be in my basement. No. But yeah, so part of it was also an opportunity for maybe some generational wealth and hopefully giving them a step up on their kind of ability to purchase real estate in the future. Yeah, so those were big factors, and the other factors was just kind of, it was pretty obvious, just starting to hear in the news and in all the channels, like, I mean, stuff's happening down in Calgary. I guess, I didn't mention this before, but another kind of, I wouldn't say it was a trigger, or it was a factor though. I had a good friend of mine from high school who passed away 2 weeks after his 50th birthday. And it just kind of hit home that, you know what, like, life is short. Like, we don't have time. And if you really want to do something, like, we only get one shot, right? So just take that step. Don't be afraid, because there's going to be you talk to people, you know, I couldn't talk to my family about any of this for like, I didn't actually tell them. So, but just, yeah, be committed. It doesn't really matter what other people say. It's just like, you know, I'm not going to be afraid anymore. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Um, you get into some trouble, you have bad tenants, you sell the property, you know, 2 years down the road, maybe lose a little bit money, maybe break even. I think it was just, don't be afraid. Just commit and know that there's help out there and you can do it.
Our end goal with this project is we're kind of keeping our options open at the moment. Are we going to sell each 8-unit building? Are we going to sell 28 units with a secondary suite? We could sell the land after subdivision approval. Are we going to try and keep some of the units or all the units as a rental investment? We are at the very early stages of this, so we're all of our options are open.
So even though it looks like 5 units, technically with the city, it's a 4-plex. So right now we're currently working on a multifamily project in Westmount. The owners of a quadplex wanted to add 2 more dwellings to make it a 6-plex, just to increase rental revenue. After we discussed with the city, there were going to be many challenges converting the 4-plex to a 6-plex. The biggest thing was permitting. You go from a residential permit with a quadplex to a commercial permit with a 6-plex. And because the existing building is already built, that would have been a huge challenge. So how we got around this was doing 2 secondary suites on the quadplex.
So that in a nutshell is the design. And we incorporated separate utility spaces for each unit, so it makes it easier for maintenance and for servicing. And so you don't need to go into everybody's suite. So the common problem that we encounter is when the mechanical room is typically in the basement, and that's where a suite is typically. And to get in to do any work on it, makes it very, very difficult. So what we've decided is to have access to the mechanical. Each individual suite has its own mechanical space, accessible from the outside, so we don't need to disrupt anybody if there's any problems in that area. And then we work into the space behind, and it's very, the design is on a narrow design. It's only 13.5 feet wide for each unit. Total of 27 feet wide for each property. And on this ground level, there's a bathroom and a bedroom. And in this case, it shows a corridor going through to a patio in the back.